Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered podcast. I'm back here with Ben, and we have some amazing questions today for each other.
Welcome back, everyone. Yes, welcome back, sir. Good to be back with you.
No,
As usual,
yeah.
we love to start off our show with a fire round of questions. We'll ask each other quick yes or no questions, only to respond with a yes or no answer initially.
Absolutely.
For the audience, none of these questions have been pre-rehearsed. We don't know what questions will be asked to each other by one another.
Yeah.
So these are all unscripted, unfiltered, hashtag no filter. I'll let my friend Platini kick things off.
All right. So my first question to you today, Ben, is when you look at how the divorce and custody courts are set up in America, do you think they are fair to both men and women?
No. Would you hire someone to your business who had abused their spouse?
No. Taking a look at the system of education in America and how it is set up today, especially at the level of higher institutions, do you think it's setting the next generation ready to compete with other big nations like China?
No. Is gun violence the greatest threat to children nowadays?
No.
Okay.
From your perspective, do you think the rate of marriages is declining rapidly, especially in the Western world among young people?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you.
All right.
How many questions did
I
you
think
just ask me?
Yes, I think you still have one for me.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I missed one. All right. Should a woman have the right to a late-term abortion?
No.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. On the rapid fire round, I ask you if the divorce and custody courts in America, the way they are set up, if it was fair to both parties. And you said no. Why do you think it is not fair to both?
Life is never fair, and especially policy as it pertains to issues of custody, of if you want to be, you might have, I don't remember if you asked divorce and those types of things.
Yeah, divorce and custody.
It's a very complex system.
Okay.
And it depends where you are in the country because laws can vary quite a bit based on state. I can speak from personal experience with having dealt with the laws in Minnesota. And what I would say is the laws in Minnesota are set up as much as possible. These laws, they do as much as they possibly can to, I believe, I would like to believe, to benefit the child in the situation. The unfortunate part is that, one, in particular in Minnesota, the fathers obviously oftentimes get left in the cold in these things because there's a lot of laws intended to protect mothers, which is, I believe, is a good thing. But those laws are designed to ensure that mothers are supported if they don't have the support of the father.
Okay.
So I want to be clear about that. These laws are intended to help single mothers when they don't have
The support of the father.
support. The unfortunate thing about that is that when, I've experienced this personally, but I've talked with many other single fathers, and the reality is that fathers who do want to be involved end up getting punished by these same laws. And the reason for that is, you have to fight for your own custody as the father. And so you're at an immediate disadvantage, even if you are involved from the very first moment. You could be there, as I was, in the hospital. You could sign the birth certificate from the moment your child enters the world. But you still have to then go to court and fight just to have custody of your child. And that's obviously puts men at a great disadvantage. And the ones who suffer are the ones who actually want to be involved in their child's life. So Me, for example, I was intending to be involved from the very beginning. There was never a doubt in my mind about that. But the unfortunate circumstances around that were that I had to battle just for that basic right. And that's not to the benefit of the child. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
The best thing possible for a child is that both parents are involved their entire life. And so there are laws that are making that more difficult for single fathers. And so again, to reiterate, it is important that single mothers are supported. That's very important because that's to the benefit of the child. But it shouldn't be at the expense of fathers or other parents who want to be involved and have to battle and, pay attorney's fees and all these other things just in order to be in their child's life. That's wrong. That needs to change. And, I hope that will be addressed.
So based on what you've said, you think it is a double-edged sword? The laws that I've said around the divorce court and custody battles, you think they are a double-edged sword that can easily be weaponized by people that have ill intentions for financial gain?
That's a great way of putting it. Is the system can be weaponized.
Okay.
And unfortunately, mothers have the ability to do that, and I see it in a great many instances. Is that the unfortunate thing is that the child is the one who gets caught up in that mix, right?
Okay.
If a mother or if any parent chooses to use the system, or the child as a bargaining chip, as leverage against the other parent. The system sometimes, in some instances, allows them to do that, unfortunately. And the one to suffer most in that scenario is the child.
Is the child.
Because they're caught in between, two parents. And that's an unfortunate circumstance.
Well, the reason I brought this question up today is because I came across a very interesting video. I was just going through this app, TikTok, and I came across this video, and it really caught my attention. I wanted to play it for you and for the audience.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, to listen and to watch, and then let me know what you think about the video in the comment section too. It's just a 50-minute video, so this is a video right here. Hold on, let me start it. And run it right back. All right, there you go. Just have to play it.
All right. 4 times divorced.
Yeah.
Okay.
Might need to turn up the volume.
4 times divorced, 4 times. Let's see, let's go. You tell me, what do you want to know?
What is the most toxic thing that you've ever done?
Okay, let's do this. All right, take them to court and then get a good divorce lawyer, of course. Take them for half of the retirement, take them half of their property, and then fight them for higher child support, okay? And a couple of years from now, hit you up for more child support every 3 years. Every 3 years, you go up from maybe 200 to 300 to 400 to 500. You bring it up to $2,000 per child. Per child. But I got one child right here. Kaylin right here. Her daddy paying child support for her, of course, it always is.
What do you think about that video?
Funny stuff, but not so funny, right? So, to your point, to your phrasing, this is a classic example of weaponizing the system. And the unfortunate thing in more progressive places like Minnesota that go to greater lengths to protect single mothers, allows for those who do want to take advantage of the system and weaponize it in this way, as this woman is doing, to make money off of her ex-husbands and baby fathers. It allows them to do that. I happen to know that there are women, who live off of that. That's their primary source of income, is to get child support, to get alimony. And to not only that, in Minnesota, you can also get a great deal of benefits and resources from the counties for having children. And so having children can be a business.
Okay.
And the unfortunate part, like I said before, is that you're putting it, when you're using it as a weapon, you are putting the child in harm's way. That's what you're doing, and the mothers maybe don't think of it that way. They, many would tell you, yeah, I'm providing for my child however I can, but is that the proper way to do it? That's the question, right? You're kind of putting your child in the middle of a battle between two people who want the best for them, and that is harming them, whether you're able to accept that or not.
So do you think women like this that are using the system for their own benefit should be maybe held accountable and punished for doing that?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's very tricky, right? Because I don't know. There's always people who will take advantage of benefits like this, and so the more benefits that are offered in a given place, the more instances you might have of that. Now, that's not the majority of people. I want to be very clear on that. Absolutely. Majority of people, no matter what the resource is offered, we could take the example of welfare, right? Which is it's called by different names. In Minnesota, there's programs, benefit programs like SNAP and these other programs that offer money for groceries and stuff like that. Those are a huge benefit, and the vast majority of people using them are using them to build to better financial security. And these programs are proven to work. So I don't want to the audience, I don't want to give the impression at all that I'm speaking against supporting people in need, because that's very important. And it's research shows that the places that offer those types of resources have the strongest economies, and they're helping people out of poverty. The flip side of that is that people can take advantage
of the systems.
Of the system. That's the unfortunate part. And so, I mean, that's a big question. How do you punish those people? To your question, it's tough, because
and one thing that I realized, Ben, is when it comes to these divorce and custody battles, sometimes the parents forget that it's not about them; it's about the child that is involved.
Absolutely.
In this situation, me, for example, I grew up in a single parent home, just with my mom. And even though she did the best she could, she gave us everything we needed. We tried the best we could to get by on a daily basis. There are just some things that I could have learned from my father if he was in the picture.
Yeah.
Now, I do not know what happened between them. I never really got the story out, but I hope one day I can get that closure to know exactly what happened. However, I know it affected me and my brothers negatively. Even though she was there trying to provide for us, at the end of the day, we needed our father in the picture.
What were the resources? I'd be interested to know, where you grew up in Cameroon, what were the resources for your mother? Were there any government type resources for her?
Nothing. There are no resources from the government that support single parents in Cameroon, as far as I know. I do not know if there are any in paper, but practically there's nothing. So she had to figure out how to feed us, clothe us, send us to school, all of that on her own, until we were old enough to be able to step in and help out with the finances we needed on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, there's always that void that a father could have filled in all of us. So I think most of these people that want to kick maybe one parent out of the picture so that they can get all these benefits from the government, they need to stop thinking like that, because it's very selfish to the child in the question. You have to stop for a second and think about how that child will grow up and the man or the woman they will become in the future.
Well, your personal story highlights two very important points to this, right? Number one, that your mother could have benefited greatly from some support. Yeah. And that's the importance of these programs, right? Is that there are a great many cases where fathers, unfortunately, don't want to be involved, and they try to run from their responsibilities, right? And that's what these laws and what these programs are designed to protect against, is these single mothers who are struggling. The other point is that you raised, that your story raises, is that the importance of two parents, right, being involved. So we have to find a way that these programs can support those single mothers, but they don't punish fathers when they actually want to be involved, right? That's the problem, because the best possible scenario is two parents working together to raise their child. And, you know, it's unfortunate if those parents happen to not be together, but still very important that there's two parents involved. That's the best thing for the child. And so there should not be something that's making that more difficult for either parent. And unfortunately, it is more difficult for fathers to have their rights to their child. They'll, you know, in many cases, there are fathers who unfortunately not only don't have custody, but then are also responsible to pay child support. So they're being told, you need to pay all this money every month, but you also don't have the right to see your child.
Yeah, that's the worst case ever.
Worst case scenario, right?
That's the worst case right there.
And so
it needs the father.
Yeah, and so there should be, you know, something in place, right? That yes, we need to support the single mothers who don't have support elsewhere, but there should be, if there's a father who is there and involved, the county or whoever should be aware of that, and that should change how those rules and regulations are applied. Because if a father wants to be involved and he's saying, I am the father, this is my child, nothing should be stopping that.
Absolutely, they should be able to.
Custody should be automatic for the father as well as the mother.
Except if they have a criminal record.
Sure.
That can prevent that from happening.
Of course, yeah. There are always exceptions.
Exceptions
to these rules, right?
Okay.
We have to. Everything is about the safety of the child. So if there's a parent, not just a father, if there's a parent at all who has criminal issues, who's on drugs, you know, drug issues, things like that, the county has to, you know, take that into consideration as well.
All right. So what would you say to those people out there that are participating in this ridiculous acts of keeping a parent out just for personal gain, like financial gains?
It's wicked.
Okay.
There's no other way to describe it. It's wicked, and it's bad parenting. And so, you know, I just want to say that there's a lot of mothers using the system to their advantage, using it to punish the other parent, and that's bad parenting. At the end of the day, you know, I come from a psychology background. The amount of damage that some of these things can do to a child, that should be a form of abuse. That should be considered abuse, because
the damage is irreversible.
Yeah, that's lifelong. That's lifelong psychological damage. And you know, whether it's because you're refusing to let them see their parent, you're bad-mouthing their parent, whatever it may be, that's irreversible damage.
Yeah, it cannot be reversed.
No. And yeah, it's just, there's no other, like I said, wicked, you know, no other way to describe it.
All right. Thank you so much, Ben. That's it for me in this line of questioning.
Thank you.
All right.
I asked you, would you hire someone to your own business, your own company, if they had beaten their spouse? I think I said abused, you know. So let's say, for example, there's a man applying for a role in your company, and you found out that he had been
very abusive.
Yes, that he had beaten up his wife, you know, got drunk and knocked his wife around. Do you think that would disqualify that individual from working in your company?
Yes, my answer to that is yes. That would automatically disqualify them, because I look at every brand that I've started here in America as an extension of me. And everybody that I work with automatically becomes family. And everything they do out there represents the brands that I've started. So I look at them like the face of the brand, each and every person I work with. So if you are abusive and you have that, how can I put it? It's an enigma with you. I don't want you representing my brand. But there are always special cases. There can be a case where it was maybe some mental health challenges that they were going through. But I will have to know that person in a personal level to be able to look past the fact that they are abusive. That they were abusive, of course, they must have gone through the right channels, gone to the rehabilitation, and been deemed fit by a professional to come back to the society and operate normally.
Sure.
For me to be able to look past that, because it is, I don't support violence of any kind. Let me be clear here today. I do not support any form of violence. So I will not, if knowing fully that you are an abusive person, I cannot hire you, not to represent my brands.
Yeah. So it has a lot to do with how you want your image of your company
to look like, and also it has a lot to do with my morals,
Sure.
and my ethics. I wouldn't be friends with someone that is abusive to their significant other. Forget
Yeah.
about branding for a second. Forget about my company or anything that I'm working on for a second. Just me as a person. If I know you're abusive to your partner, I'm sorry, we cannot be friends.
And would that, I mean, obviously that would affect probably your ability to trust that person as a colleague.
I can't trust you because I can't trust you. It's impossible to look past that. Again, there are always special cases. Like I said, if you've gone through the rehabilitation process of getting the necessary help you need, and you've been cleared by a professional to come back to the society, then just maybe over a couple of drinks, I can see a means to be able to forgive you, because at the end of the day, I'm a Christian too, and I believe in forgiveness and forgetting.
Okay.
So yeah, but you have to atone for your sins and show that you're ready to move past them.
Right.
Yeah, for me to be able to get to that point with you.
And so let's say, for example, you know, it's a position of leadership
Yes.
in government, for example. Should that be disqualifying?
Again, if the person have gone through the process of healing, yes, and is ready to keep that part of their life, lock it up somewhere, toss it in the ocean, and move on from that part of their life, I believe in second chances. Yes, they should be allowed. Because at the end of the day, we all have made mistakes. Everybody have made mistakes. Some of us just made mistakes that we will have to carry our whole lives with us. But I believe as a society, we should be able to look at one another and be like, okay, I know you made these mistakes, but I'm going to forgive you and give you another chance.
So are you familiar with Pete Hegseth?
Is it the Secretary of Defense?
Secretary of Defense.
I'm familiar with him.
So Secretary of Defense, that's literally the highest person in government overseeing the U.S. military.
Absolutely.
Right? This is the person in charge of our entire nation's defense against foreign threats.
Domestic threats?
Yes, global war, everything. He was questioned. He was asked basically the same question. Because there's been accusations of him having beat his former spouse. So, in terms of your response, which is that, you know, like if it's someone who's healed from it, that's one thing, right? He was not able to admit that it actually happened. But then when asked in the same confirmation hearing, should someone who's abused their spouse be disqualified from this type of position, he refused to answer the question, indicating that obviously he was guilty of something that he's...
That should tell the American people a lot about someone like that, because it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. You should be able to look at things like that and understand that are really bad for the country at the end of the day. Because if you cannot admit the fact that you were abusive, even though evidence have been proven, but again, we need the evidence, because accusing someone doesn't necessarily mean that was what happened.
Right.
Yes.
But for what reason would you sit up in a Senate hearing and say, and not answer that question, right? If you were sitting in, for example, if you were up for the job of Secretary of Defense and somebody asked you the same question I just asked you, right? That should abusing your spouse disqualify you, you would answer, yes, that should disqualify me, right?
Absolutely.
He wouldn't answer that question.
He wouldn't. That's what I said right now to the American people. When you see someone like that, you should be careful with, and it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we can only be able to disqualify someone for a position like that if we have evidence that they have done this act, and if they haven't really, and if we also can understand that these people they are still capable of doing that act again. Because again, like I always say, the laws in America doesn't really forgive. One mistake and you're done. But I think as a society, we should be able to forgive those that have healed from their mistakes and welcome them into the society and give them a second chance. I know also it's still a double-edged sword. That you can welcome someone thinking they've healed, they're never gonna do it again, and they still do it again. So I understand why people would be skeptical with letting people like that back in the society.
Well, yeah, and I want to say, I mean, how did you word it? You said, I mean, once you break the law in this country, there's no coming back.
There's no forgiveness to that.
Unless you're a wealthy, powerful person. That's how this country operates, and so the law applies differently to different people. white wealthy men tend to easily get away with these types of things. And
Ben,
so,
let me disturb your thought for a second, Mr. Ben. You see, when it comes to African Americans in this country and their relationship with Africans that are from Africa like me, you often hear a lot of Africans say that African Americans have a lot of criminal records and all of that stuff. It is because this country doesn't forgive people. I grew up in Cameroon. I remember
some people,
Yeah, I remember.
people of color,
I grew
those
up.
who don't get forgiven.
It's a lot of white people too that have not been forgiven. I don't want to.
Yeah, maybe poor white people. Yeah,
I don't want to make it a race thing. I want to make it a class thing, a rich and versus poor, because
it's that as well. Yeah.
yeah, I've seen a lot of white people too that go through the same struggle. So, growing up in Cameroon, the amount of dumb things we did when we were younger, at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18, if I was in America, my record would have been completely shattered. But today, I like to think I'm somehow responsible because I learn from my mistakes and I grow up.
Sure.
Yes. So the legal system in Cameroon functions more like a correctional system, where when you make a mistake, they try to correct you and then bring you back to the society. Instead here, it's a condemnation system. When you make a mistake here, they condemn you, they bury you.
It depends.
Yeah.
As we've talked about on this show, the U.S. has private operated prisons, which is something that shouldn't even exist. That means prisons that are built on for-profit, meaning the prisons make money the more people they lock up. So the system is in place to profit off of.
So it doesn't forgive at all.
It doesn't forgive. And they're not designed to fix people. I mean, obviously.
To correct people and send them back into the society.
No, they're designed to lock people up and then force them to work for, below the minimum wage.
Way below.
Modern day slavery. But I want to touch on a few things you mentioned because you're right. It is 100% a class issue, which was my point, right? Someone like Pete Hegseth is not going to be punished the same way that a less fortunate person in this country would suffer those consequences. He would get powerful attorneys to get him out of it. He would have every possible privilege for that. But race also plays a major role, right? The law and order system in this country is built to target young African American men. We don't see that as much in a progressive place like Minnesota, where you've lived since you've been in the States. Your experience might be very different in somewhere else like the South, where you hear horror stories.
No, trust me, I know.
Yes.
Yes, I know. I know what is happening to young men of color.
So it's class, but it is also race. Getting back to the issue of a man who beat his wife and is now in the highest position, and that he was confirmed by Republicans into this position. So what does that say about Trump's leadership? That he is willing to hire a very first of all, we didn't even talk about his qualifications. He's not qualified to be in
What
this
is it
position.
about Trump's leadership is a man that is willing to look over the fact that somebody made a mistake. That's why the guy went to Congress. And if they confirm the president alone is not responsible for picking someone like that, that's why he went in front of the people and had the hearing. And I'm a huge fan of, if somebody made a mistake in the past and they have moved on from it and they have healed, let's leave it in the past.
He hasn't.
I have a
he
question.
didn't even admit it that it happened.
How would you know that he hasn't healed and moved on from it? Because again, here's the thing: if you ask someone a question like that and they don't answer it, it's a red flag. It doesn't necessarily mean they haven't healed from it. There are some things that happened in my past I don't ever want to talk about them again, but I've moved on from them. You get it? So I have a question for you. Anybody that thinks this man should be convicted for his crime today?
That's not the question.
Yeah.
It's not about convicting.
Okay, hold on. When did this happen? When did this thing happen?
So I want to explain to the audience what a Senate hearing is for people who get confirmed into these very powerful executive branch government positions. It's a job interview, right? Trump, as the president, nominates somebody to fill this position, and then they go in front of Congress and to be asked questions about their qualifications. So these Senate hearings are like a job interview. That's why I asked you this question. Would you hire somebody to your business? The answer was no to that question.
My answer, let me refer, this was my answer. My answer was, if you are someone that is still you're still abusing your spouse today, I will not hire you. But if
That
you're-
wasn't your answer
No,
at first.
no. I said my answer was no. If you're still abusing your spouse today, but I later explained that if you've healed and you've moved on from it, I will give you a second.
He didn't even admit it. He's not even willing
That's
to
what I'm
admit.
telling you. That at the end of the day, right? There are some traumas that people move on from them and they just want to let them go. They just want to leave them in the past. Now, I don't really understand why someone would automatically think that because a person, what is his name again?
Pete Hegseth.
Pete. Someone like Pete have been offered that job by the president, that at the end of the day, it's reflecting bad on the president's leadership. No. Trump is the president of the United States of America. Now, we have to be able to give him the benefit of the doubt and actually watch him work. We can't come up here every day and try to make him look like the bad guy for every bad thing that is happening in this country. He hired the guy, right? Why didn't Congress stop the guy? We in power.
We hired Trump.
Yes.
Trump works for us.
Absolutely.
It is our job.
Yes.
It is absolutely our job to
Yes.
question the
But
decisions.
Can we give him the benefit of the doubt at least to see him actually start the job we hired him for?
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay.
If he wasn't hiring very sketchy, unqualified
So-
people into our government.
So you said the Congress is the interview. Why didn't the interview just disqualify the guy?
Because it was controlled by Republicans.
So they think he's good for the job.
Republicans, because they work for Trump.
Okay. So you think the whole of the entire Republican congressmen in the White in DC work for Trump? That's what you think?
Yes, and in fact, yeah, we have many examples of this, right? I've brought this up in the show before. The Congress, during hurricane season, for example, was about to pass a bill to provide aid. This was while Biden was still president.
Yeah.
The Congress, Republicans and Democrats, were about to sign off on a bill to provide aid to people who were caught up in the hurricane destruction. Trump, who wasn't in any sort of political office at the time, went to those Republicans and said, do not vote for this bill because it's going to make Biden look good.
And they did not.
And they did not vote for it. Republicans dropped off, and then the bill did not get passed. So yes.
Then here's what I would
yes,
say.
I believe that the
Then here's what I would
Republicans
say.
in Congress absolutely work for Trump.
Then here's what I would say to the American people, because again, like I always said, and I've said in this show before, I've looked at both parties in America. I came to this country, I was a Democrat. I flipped to Republican not too long ago. I've looked at both parties, and I'm telling you this as someone that come from outside and I've observed this. I'm not an idiot. I know what I'm talking about. I did my research very well, and I watched this country carefully. I came here and I was a Democrat. There is no party that is not flying under certain ideologies that they are more loyal to than to the American people. So when you go to vote for your congressman, vote for someone that is going to walk in there and is not going to play the Republican-Democrat game. It's going to play the people's game. It always goes back to the people. You vote for these people. You should be able to vote them out if you see that this person is more loyal to an individual than to the American people. This goes to both parties.
It's an interesting point because
You should be able to pick the leader that will be interested in for the people. And that's why I'm sitting here. I'm here to make sure that the American people get the best of everything they're voting for. And that's why we are here today. It's not Democrat, Republican thing.
well, it is.
You get what I'm trying to get to?
Unfortunately, it
has
is
to-
a
it has to
Democrat
be the
Republican
people. It
because
has to be the people's thing.
We have a two-party system.
Yeah.
And so again, because this point gets made all the time, like people who don't understand policy very well will say, oh, well, there's both sides are bad. They're both evil. On some level, that's true because they are, so much of anyone who works in government nowadays works for corporate interests. Like because there's so much money being put into politics, that's who they kind of have to keep happy is the powerful public interest. But it is a two-party system. Those are the two options that we have
and that's the only thing
in the
we have.
United States. So
Right.
it is
You're right.
it is Democrat, Republican.
At the end of the day, that's always going to be the game.
What's interesting about Trump is that he got in it. You could look back on his entire career leading up to politics and everything. He doesn't really have a true ideology. Like he before getting into politics, he donated to Hillary campaign, by the way, who eventually became his rival. But Trump's not in it for the ideology. Trump is in it for the power and the self-interest. There's no record for Trump of public service whatsoever.
I have a question for you, Ben.
Trump avoided serving in the military. He pretended to
Ever
have a
been able
condition.
to have a conversation on this show about America in the next 4 years, and it's not about Trump, just about America as a country.
Well, sure, absolutely.
I would really love for us to get to that point someday. Because
We're talking
the
based on
question was, the question started as,
of
would you
government.
hire someone that is abusing their spouse?
And
But
your
now-
answer was no. And then you changed your answer. It became about political.
Anybody that watches this show, please reach out to us and let me know if I changed my answer when it became political. I did
Please
not.
do.
What I stated here before we even went to the political angle was, if you're still abusing your partner right now, I can't.
That's not what you said. You said if
that's
you've
what I
healed
said.
from it.
Yes.
I don't think.
But if you've healed from it, that's
I'm
what
not
my
interested
answer.
in waiting for a man who beat up his wife to heal. I think
No. Okay.
it's her healing that needs
Here's
to happen.
what I meant. If you come to me right now and you want me to give you a job, and I know that you're beating your wife right now, I'm not giving you that job. But if I look at your resume and I realize that this happened maybe 18 years ago, 5 years ago, and I see that you've healed from it, there are professionals stating that you have gone through the rehabilitation process and you've healed from it.
He hasn't, by the way.
I will give you the job. That was my answer here.
But all right, everybody. You have
was my answer.
his official answer to the question. Platini would hire a wife beater.
No, I will hire a wife beater that is no longer a wife beater that has healed from it, because I believe in second chances, because I'm a Christian and I forgive and I forget. That's why I would do it. My cultural values gave me a second chance. I grew up in a society where I made a lot of mistakes and people forgive me. And that's why I'm here today. I'm not a perfect man. I made so many mistakes that I regret every day of my life.
Did you ever beat your wife?
I've never been married, but I made a lot of terrible mistakes. So I believe in giving people second chances. Yes.
All right, we need to move on.
I would forgive.
Good discussion. We need to get to some of the other questions in the show.
Right. My second question to you was about the system of education in America and if it is setting up our young ones, who are the future of America, of course, to be able to compete with these big nations like China, Japan, that are moving so fast. And you said the system of education it wasn't good. That's what your answer was no.
No.
So why would you say that?
This is a very loaded question.
I'm sorry that I had to bring such a big question at you.
It's because education is one of the most complex issues.
Yeah.
And sorry to tell you, I mean, everything ties into policy.
Okay.
That's why so many of our discussions turn to politics, because
It's okay.
everything
They will have to.
Everything ties into public policy, and
Yeah.
public policy is decided by people in power in government.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why everything tends to evolve into who is in power, because these are the ones making the decisions, and
Yeah.
that very much includes education.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And we're about to see major cuts to education funding
Okay.
under Trump and the Republicans. They tend to favor private schools.
Okay.
They like to give benefits to private schools, but the unfortunate thing is that vast majority of the United States families can't afford private schools, right? So that's why public schools exist. We're about to see major cuts to that. That's a part of the problem, is that funding is a major thing. If you don't have money in schools, you don't have quality, you don't have good teachers, you don't have teachers who are happy in their jobs.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of the problem, is
in place.
funding for public schools. And my daughter's in public school. And I see similar issues even in a place like Minneapolis that is very progressive. And so we pay a lot of taxes to go towards these schools, but it's still not enough, right? Even with the taxpayer money, a lot of it, going towards education, there was still a teacher strike in Minneapolis. I believe it was last year, maybe. It might have been 2022. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was 2022.
There was a Minneapolis teachers,
2022.
Minneapolis public school teachers walked out for a week because of, they have a union. They need to make sure that they're being taken care of, that they have what they need. I mean, a lot of teachers will tell you they have to buy supplies for their own classrooms.
I heard a lot of teachers say that. They had to do that.
Yeah, which is shocking, right? Mm-hmm. But if the government isn't helping fund, then nobody is. And that's the point.
Well, if the Republican government is actually cutting back funding on education, then that's a big mistake. I'm not going to sit here and support something that's just wrong. It's just wrong because at the end of the day, when I look at countries like China, and how advanced their system of education is. I was watching these videos of children in, I think it's kindergarten in China, and they were getting really productive. They were in the with construction gears on building stuff in their classroom. And then I just thought of America and looking at how our children are being educated. We are not getting ready for the future. No wonder why China is so ahead of us right now when it comes to technology. We are not there. But we used to be there. So what happened down the line? What happened?
Well, funding is one aspect. The other is that a focus on what is the future in technology. That's a huge thing, and U.S. is falling behind to certain countries in that area. Because I mean, as everybody knows now, technology is everything nowadays. I mean, AI is going to be the next big wave. But I saw a chart actually of countries with the most software developers, something like this. China was way up there.
My brother.
They caught the wave way sooner, and software development has now become huge in the U.S. as well. Obviously, we've caught on to the fact that that software is everything. We all rely constantly, every minute of our day, on software, on applications. Look, to get us to our destination, to log into our bank account, whatever. And so
you made a point here that I'm still mad at.
What's that?
Why is the government cutting funding back from education? That is pissing me off right now.
Oh, because Republicans, it happens, so historically speaking, it happens every time Republicans take control of the government, is they make major cuts.
How are we supposed to build infrastructure, build AI and technology that can compete with the rest of the world if the children that are supposed to do it don't get the necessary equipment and systems they need to do these things?
Yeah, it's not a good investment in our future. I mean, the children, as we know, are the future, yeah, without that education, we're going to fall further behind. Look, I mean, it has everything to do with who, congressional, who representatives are working for. And it's just the case that the majority of Republicans in Congress, they are funded by corporate interests who are not interested in...
Even the corporate interests. Shouldn't the corporate interests be drifting towards building more skillful citizens of the society for tomorrow?
It depends on what that corporate interest is, but for the most part...
Who would be against education? It doesn't settle down with me. I'm angry right now because...
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a Republican Democrat thing. It's common sense. It's common sense. These countries are getting ahead of us and we cannot catch up because we are not educating these children to be competitors. We are not educating them to be creators, to be innovators anymore. It's just a game of A and Bs. They go to class, all they're worried about is, can I get an A grade? Can I get a B grade?
Yeah.
Boom. They get into the job market and they just get sucked into the corporate world.
Yeah.
What happened to free thinking, logical thinking?
Right. Well, it gets to a deeper issue that as the wealth gap, as we've talked about on the show, continues to grow. Look, the wealthiest people in the country can easily put their kids in the best private schools that are available.
But their kids don't even make up to 10% of the country. We
Right.
need more than just 10% of children to be able to compete with the rest of the
Not
world.
even 5%. And so, yeah, the vast majority of the country is getting left behind. Public schools, they are a mess. I mean, the more progressive the area, Minnesota has some of the best public schools because we fund them, because we pay a lot of taxes in Minnesota that go towards schools. And this is the catch-22, right? People don't like to pay taxes.
There shouldn't even be a
Republicans vote
negotiation when it comes to school.
Yeah.
Ben, I'm pissed because it shouldn't even be something that they get to argue about in Congress,
Yeah.
in the House. It shouldn't even be something that is getting tabled up there. We're talking about hospitals and schools. These two things is common sense.
Yes, I agree.
The
I agree.
school system should be the best system in the country.
Oh, we have the richest nation in the world and some of the worst schools. And that has everything to do with politics, unfortunately. Yeah, I agree with you. It should not be a political issue. I mean, the education of our children should be
It should be
top
up there.
priority.
It should be the top priority of anything we are doing in this country.
Yeah.
Do you see, like, when they banned TikTok for a few days, a lot of people went to this Chinese app that was called Red Note. And I just realized that a lot of Americans did not even know how advanced China was. Because when they went up there, they realized that China was like 50 miles ahead of America. The streets, the infrastructure, the beauty of China.
Yeah.
And then they realized that most children in China, they're devoting their days into being creative and innovative.
Right.
That's what they do. On Red Note, you can't scroll like up to 3 videos without seeing someone doing something extraordinary in China.
What's the app called?
Red Note.
Red Note.
Yeah, that's what we call it. But the app is in Chinese.
Ah,
I downloaded the app just to see what was happening over there.
Yeah.
China is miles ahead of us. And this is a country that used to be behind us. So what is going on with this country?
Yeah. Well, we're playing right into the hands of countries like China who want to take over as the world's new superpower.
You know, China doesn't even have to try hard anymore. You know why? Because they're already the world superpower.
They're already advanced.
They're too advanced for us to catch up.
But it's funny that you bring up TikTok because I mean that's for those who don't know the full sort of story, and even I don't know the full story behind, TikTok, but it's on the phones of 170 million Americans, and China is 100%. It's not even whether or not China is using it. We know they are. The CIA, the CIA director came in and said, we know that China is using TikTok to steal data from Americans. And if it's on the phones of 170 million people, imagine all the stuff they could gather. I mean, look, that could give them access to a lot of things.
China doesn't even use TikTok, you know that, right? It's not.
What do they use?
The app is not active in China. They banned the app in China a long time ago. Red Note is the version of TikTok. That's what the app.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They don't use TikTok in China. Now,
Even when they did, they had regulations around it. They didn't let
only-
kids use it. I mean,
Yeah.
they were smarter. They
That's
knew
why
how
they
bad it
iced them
was.
anyways. They want
Kind of
to
knew
scam
exactly
everyone.
how dangerous TikTok was.
Yeah. So now, when it comes to the TikTok ban, here's my comment on it, because we are just at this topic right now. So when it comes to the TikTok ban, right, I wasn't against the ban itself. But what I was against was, if you're going to tell about 7 million Americans that are making a living off that app full time, the way those are the statistics I saw, to lose their jobs, please give the evidence to the public. Declassify those files and give them a reason why they should be losing their jobs. Because when it comes to an average man, he's not worried about whether China takes his information or not. They're only worried about, okay, I have this house, I have a mortgage, I have car payment. If you take this app that I'm making money from, I'm going to lose my house and my car payment. I'm not going to be able to feed my family. Give them the reason why they should be losing that. If you just say, I'm the chief of the CIA, FBI, this is what we found out, that's not enough reason. Declassify those files. Sometimes the rules and the policies we set in place, we have to look at them and understand that we might need to explain them to the public in detail, why they should be losing certain things or getting certain things. If you understand what I'm trying to say. Just imagine as an average individual as you're sitting right now. You have bills you pay every month. If TikTok was your primary source of income or your only source of income, and someone was asking you to lose the source of income without providing you a concrete evidence on why you should, will you just take it at face value?
No, of course. I mean, so, there were members of Congress who made that exact point, that it's not so simple. That there are people whose businesses depend on TikTok. They've built a
An
following.
estimated 7 million Americans.
Yeah, well, and once you've built as we all know, once you've built a following on one platform, that doesn't just transfer to another platform. So it's not as if you can just transfer your entire following from TikTok to Meta or whatever other platform. So it's a very complicated issue because yes, TikTok, just as China intended, has been woven into the fabric of Americans' economy.
But they don't even use the app in China, though. So I don't understand. That's why I might need to see those evidence to be able to understand how China is the one behind TikTok.
Well, they're operating
because the app to begin with is from Singapore. It's a Singaporean app. Then
the creator is from Singapore.
The mother company, which is ByteDance, it's more of a conglomerate with investors from different parts of the world. and I hear only about 20% of those investors are from China. I do not know. This is data that I might still need to fact check, but I hear it's about 20%. So, and the app is not functioning in China, so I don't really understand how the communist government of China can have control over this app. That is not even functioning in their country. That their investors in the app are only about 20%. So I don't get it.
Right.
So we might need to see that.
The TikTok issue is one we could discuss in great detail as well.
These questions I asked, Ben, are questions that most people that were about to lose their TikTok accounts, they were asking these questions. So please, if you are someone that have this evidence, please just help us out. Let's get them. Because you have to tell the American people why they should be losing their sources of income.
Well,
Will
absolutely.
you not provide another one for them?
To bring the question full circle, I mean, this is how advanced China is, that they can use technology like TikTok as a weapon against the United States, and that's.
So you believe TikTok was a social engineered attack on the American people?
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, the creator, as you mentioned, is from Singapore, actually.
Singapore.
And so I don't know that. I have no idea whether this was China's original intention for TikTok.
Or it just presented an opportunity down the line?
Of course.
Okay.
But technology, the bottom line here, the point is that technology is everything. And the fact that China is way more advanced with technology gives them
They're light years ahead of us, man.
an advantage. And that comes back to your question. I mean, education, U.S. is undoubtedly falling way behind. And it's a very complicated problem to solve, but obviously we need funding, we need well-paid public school teachers. If we don't have that, we're doomed.
It has to start with public schools because public schools have the majority of our students.
Yes.
So you have to start with public.
That's the majority of America.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
public education.
This is not even something that it should be a Republican versus Democrat thing. It should just be something that we have to do for the future of America.
Absolutely.
Because I know not too long ago, America was leading in research. All forms of research, from technology to medicine. But today, I don't even think we are leading in anything when it comes to research. I don't think so. If we are honest, we look at the data, we are not leading in any form of research right now.
Yeah.
So we are falling
No,
behind.
it has to be funded. Even research requires funding.
Yeah. Our universities, especially all these institutions of higher education in America, they used to be very, very good at research.
And that you could go back. This is a little historical note. One of the big issues when Al Gore was running for president against George W. Bush, one of the major issues was stem cell research, which we knew at the time was very promising for a potential cure for cancer. This goes along with my point. Republicans tend to make major cuts to these types of funding, and so the major issue was that George Bush, the Republican candidate at that time, was going to cut stem cell research, and so it goes well beyond education, right? I mean, this is medical.
No, it has to start with the government and the policies that are in place.
This is medical research that is essential.
It's very essential.
Stem cell research, the possible cure for cancer, these things.
Not only cancer, a lot of things.
It all requires a lot of funding from the government. And so this is where cuts, they just really hurt us. I mean, like I said, it's kind of a catch-22. None of us are thrilled about paying taxes. We've also talked on the show about the fact that we pay so much taxes because the wealthy are not paying, right? Amazon's not paying tax rates like we are, and that's a huge problem. If they were putting money back into the economy, we could be thriving. But unfortunately, the wealthiest are getting tax breaks. And if we're not paying to make up for it, we're going to not have funding for things like education, science research, medical research, these things. So that's the essential piece for education. We need the funding. Otherwise, we're going to continue to fall behind.
All right. Thank you so much, Ben. I think we should continue on the next episode because we are almost out of time.
Oh, look at us.
Yeah,
how the time flies.
Yeah, time flies when we are in these conversations. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue on the next episode with the questions that we haven't asked each other on this episode. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode today. And again, these conversations, we are having this conversation because we need to talk.
Yes.
We need to encourage the country to talk. We have to have these conversations because the more we argue and we don't get to have these conversations is the more America is falling behind and other nations are going ahead of us.
Yes. And Platini and I are willing to sit here and talk even when we disagree. We've made this point many times on this program that cutting one another off does not advance us as a community, as a people, as a country, anything. The more we cut one another off and the more we drift apart, the farther we are going to fall behind. Because yes, we have to be able to come together despite different ideologies and have these conversations. If we don't, it's just going to be a constant battle that is at the expense of, like we discussed in this episode, at the expense of our children, at the expense of medical research, all of these things that are so essential for us as a people. So keep the dialogues going. That's what we do on this show.
Absolutely. All right.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much, Ben, and thank you guys so much for tuning in today. So we will continue on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.